Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 967 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today I'll be speaking with Kim. We're going to be talking with Kim about her daughter, Vivian, who was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 9 months old. She also has something called Tetrasomy 9P. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you'd like to get a little something for nothing, start using AG1 with my link, drinkag1.com/juicebox. When you use that link to get started with AG1, you'll also get 5 free travel packs and a year's supply of vitamin D, also for free. 40% off? Is that something you're interested in? CozyEarth.com. Get all your comfortables at CozyEarth.com. Towels, bedding, and clothing. Save 40% at checkout with the offer code JUICEBOX. And don't forget the private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. Check it out, become a member, and join the other 40,000 members, some of whom have type 1, type 2, or are the caregivers of. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour Next Gen Blood Glucose Meter. ContourNext.com/Juicebox. These meters are incredibly accurate. They are reliable. They're easy to use. They are beautiful. ContourNext.com/Juicebox. Do not walk around with a junky meter in your pocket. Get an accurate one. The After Dark series from the Juicebox Podcast is the only place to hear the stories that no one else talks about. From smoking weed to drinking with type 1. Perspectives from both male and females about having sex with diabetes. We talk about depression, self-harm, eating disorders, mental illness, heroin addiction, use of psychedelics, living with bipolar, being a child of divorce, and honestly, so much more. I can't list them all. But you can by going to juiceboxpodcast.com, going to the top, and clicking on After Dark. There you'll see episode 807, called One Thing After Another, episode 825, California Sober. Other After Dark episodes include Unsupported, Survivor's Guilt, Space Musician, Dead Frogs. These titles will make you say, what is this about? And then when you listen, you'll think, that was crazy. Juiceboxpodcast.com. Find the After Dark series. It's fantastic.
Hi, my name is Kim, and I have a daughter with type 1 diabetes and special needs.
Okay, Kim. Your daughter is an only child?
No, I actually have 4 children. She has 2 older brothers, and then we had a bonus baby during COVID.
What a lovely way to say that.
It does happen.
I'm quite certain of that. Okay, so 2 older brothers, younger. She's right there at number 3. Are we using her name? It's okay if we don't.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm going to accidentally say it a million times because I talk about her frequently. We are an open book because we feel that her story helps people, and I'm all for it.
Cool. What's her name?
Her name is Vivian.
Vivian. Do we call her Viv, or is she Vivian?
Oh, she's Vivi, the Vivster, Vivian, all the above.
Gotcha. How old is she?
She is 6 now. She was diagnosed when she was 9 months old.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. Extremely rare.
Wow. No kidding.
Yes.
All right. So I guess, can you tell me a little bit about the diagnosis? How does it present in a baby?
Yes. So we had an extremely challenging first year of life for our sweet Vivian. I'm going to back up a tiny bit before her diagnosis, just to give you a little background. She was a quiet baby. She slept a lot. She was very tolerant of her older brothers. My top 3 are like 21 months apart each. Mm-hmm. So it was an active household, and the boys would put their full body weight into her to kiss her, and she would just not even flinch. So we kind of equated that to her being a girl. We had never had a girl before. So we were just like, wow, she sleeps a lot. We finally have a sleeper. She's quiet. She's tolerant. She hated tummy time. That was one thing that we did notice. And she also choked on her breast milk constantly. Every single feeding she choked.
Okay.
And I brought it up to the pediatrician multiple times, and she kept saying, "Oh, it's because you have a strong letdown. It'll regulate. She will learn how to deal with it." So then at our 4-month well visit, the doctor comes in the room, gives her a quick assessment. And I had my other 2 kids there getting flu shots or something, and my father, because I needed kind of help to wrangle the children. And she says, "Vivian has low muscle tone, and I'm not impressed with her eye contact. I think she needs early intervention." And then she walked out of the room, gave me the phone number, and walked out of the room. It was so quick that my dad didn't even know that it happened. Like, he was sitting there and he didn't even hear it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I come home shocked, and I did all the things, called the number, talked to my husband. We were just completely in shock and in denial, and a little bit embarrassed because by background, I'm actually an occupational therapist and a nurse, and he's a nurse and a nurse practitioner. So we were like, how did we not know that she has low muscle tone? And how did we not know that her eye contact isn't great? But anyway, at 5 months old, she was evaluated for early intervention, and she started. And when they came to our house, we actually said to each other, like, she's not even going to qualify. Like, I mean, they're going to come and assess her, but she's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about denial. They leave our house and they're like, she's significantly delayed in all areas. She needs physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and teacher of the visually impaired. And what a punch to the gut. Like, we were just in complete disbelief, shock, all of the above. Mm-hmm. So then she starts all her services. We're kind of getting on board with the idea that she has delays, and we're supporting her in every way we can. And she continues to choke on breast milk. The doctor continues to say it'll regulate, it's fine. Then at 6 months old, she was hospitalized for RSV, which is actually like really crazy right now. I don't know if it's crazy around your area, but RSV is just like a really, really bad cold. And she landed in the hospital just from having RSV because she was so frail. She was not strong enough to fight it off. Mm-hmm. She came home. She went right back in the hospital again with RSV again. So hospitalized twice in the same week. And during that hospitalization, she had a swallow study done, and she was in fact aspirating the breast milk into her lungs.
Oh my God.
So
hey, can I ask real quick, the doctor who said, "Don't worry, she'll catch up drinking," is the same doctor that said, "I'm not impressed with her muscle tone, etc."
Yes.
So saw all that, but didn't correlate the two things together.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if she would have at our next visit, but our hospitalization came first, and they just did a swallow study, and boom, she's aspirating. So subsequently, I changed pediatricians after this experience, because as a mom with a child with special needs, and certainly a mom of a child that has special needs and type 1 diabetes, you need to be listened to. You need to be heard by your providers. And I didn't feel that way. So we have a new pediatrician, side note. So that 6 months old, that hospitalization, everyone was just like, all the doctors were just like, why? Why is she so failure to thrive? Why is she aspirating? Why is she developmentally delayed, needing these services? Like, we need to investigate this further. So we kind of got on the fast track to see a developmental pediatrician and a geneticist. Mm-hmm. So both of those things were like year-long waiting lists, but because she was hospitalized twice in a week, she got on the fast track for that. So we came home and we added feeding therapy to all her different therapies. And it was really crazy because in order to breastfeed her, I had to keep her side lying, support her cheek, support her chin. It was a whole big rigmarole. But
and I would imagine as well the pressure of thinking constantly that this milk is ending up in her lungs.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like I was going to say in the beginning, I kind of like did a little digging in her old medical charts to kind of remind myself of the story. And God, there's so much I completely forgot about and completely blacked out because there was just so much trauma that we lived this first year.
Yeah.
But anyway, so crazy with the breastfeeding. And the issue was that she wasn't strong enough to get the milk from me. And because she was my third child, my body thought I was weaning, even though I was feeding an infant. My body thought I was weaning. So my body wasn't producing enough breast milk because she wasn't stimulating the breast enough with her poor strength and poor coordination in her mouth.
Right.
So I wasn't providing her enough either. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it was just an awful situation. And I did get tremendous support from the local hospital with as far as feeding and supporting continuing breastfeeding. So then at 8 months old, we finally saw we had seen the geneticist, and at 8 months old, we find out through a blood test that she has an extremely rare chromosomal difference, which explained everything of why she was having feeding issues, why she was having low muscle tone, why she was having developmental delays. So it was shocking again. It was like another punch to the gut, but at least we had a reason, that these things were happening.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this chromosomal difference is so extremely rare that at that time, there was only 60 people in the world that had something similar. So we had very little information about it, and we had no real connections or supports. But in a way, it was great because we were going to let her write her own story. If we don't know what's going to happen, then gosh darn it, we're going to support her in every way we can to maximize her potential.
Right.
Because she's gonna write her own story.
So the thing that is askew is so, rare. I think is the obvious word. Is so rare that it's not even something that you can hold up to other people who have a similar problem and say, like I don't know, like type 1 diabetes. You can say, well, that person's pancreas doesn't blah blah blah. Either does that one, and these people have the same thing. It was just 60 people who vaguely have these problems, but they can't even put them into a bucket. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. And we actually walked into our first appointment with the geneticist to talk about the diagnosis with a packet of information that we got printed off. So there's a website called Unique, and it's like all the unique chromosomal disorders. And we found it, we printed this off. So we come to the appointment with that packet of information, and the doctor walks in with the same thing. He's like, I did research. I found this packet. It's the only thing I have. And we're like, yeah, we already read it. And in this packet, there's, a handful of children and adults that were interviewed and whatever. And every single developmental area, it was so varied. Like your child could be wheelchair bound, or they could be running. Your child could have significant swallowing issues and have a G tube, or they could be eating with no problem. Your child could be nonverbal, or they could have no speech issues whatsoever. So we were just like, forget it. She's written her own story. We're supporting her. Just, let's move on. So then we come to May 5th of 2017. She had her another swallow study that basically showed her swallowing sitting up, and it was a disaster. So they basically were like, you have to thicken the breast milk. If you're going to give her breast milk sitting up, you have to thicken anything you give her. Very significant swallowing issues. I come home from that swallow study and I got the stomach bug, as did my entire household except for Vivian. Vomiting, throwing and going, the whole nine. Awful, awful illness. Bedbound for 4 days. My mother comes over to take care of my children because I literally could not get out of bed. And this little girl who had such trouble eating and maintaining her nutrition and breastfeeding and swallowing and all that jazz. My Italian mother comes over and she's going, Kimmy, she's eating great. She just ate a whole, carton of baby food. And I'm just like, of course, my Italian mother can get her to eat and I can't.
I thought you were going to say Zeppeli for some reason.
So, and then like this girl never was able to, manage a bottle. Like she needed cheek and chin support sideline to even breastfeed poorly. She would never be able to coordinate a bottle. She was taking, thickened breast milk out of a bottle from my mother. And I'm just like, geez, like, of course my mom wins and I'm like the worst mother ever, like, that's just what I thought. And then she started peeing through her diapers at night. And I said to myself, oh, she's eating more and drinking more. So she's bigger. She's a big girl now. Maybe we need overnight diapers. So I sent my husband out to get overnight diapers. Meanwhile, Scott, I have type 1 diabetes in my family.
Okay.
I am a nurse. My husband's a nurse. We should have known something. I'm still kind of embarrassed with myself about not really seeing the signs. I really, truly, in my dehydrated state, thought it was just because my mom was awesome, that she was eating and drinking more, and she was a big girl now and needed overnight diapers.
Can you tell me type 1 diabetes in your family? Who?
Yeah, so my uncle, so my mother's brother.
Okay.
And he actually died of complications of diabetes because even, 20 years ago, they managed diabetes so differently. He never carb counted.
Right.
He always, like my entire life, he had a sliding scale, a long acting and a sliding scale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had major complications for it. And then his grandson. So there is, and then I have Hashimoto's. My mother has Hashimoto's. So the endocrinologist upon diagnosis said that we just have an autoimmune family. And, she just got struck by lightning, but actually struck by lightning twice because she had also been struck with this very rare chromosomal difference.
I have to, let me make sure the chromosomal difference is, does it have a name?
It does. So it's called Tetrasomy 9p. So she has 4 copies of just the short arm of her 9th chromosome.
I don't understand what that means, but I was able to Google
Yeah.
it. Okay.
And really, it presents itself extremely, varied across the board. No 2 children are the same or 2 adults are the same. But with, for Vivian, her main issues have been swallowing, speech. She's extremely apraxic with her speech. So she actually uses sign language, some verbal, and a communication device to speak. And then she also has that low muscle tone in her trunk. So and then she has significant visual issues. One of her eyes is nearsighted and one of her eyes is farsighted. So amongst other things.
Okay, we'll get back. I just need a little context for it. We'll come back to that in a little bit. I'm sorry, you keep going. So your mom gets her to eat. Now she's peeing through the diapers. Yeah.
Everybody had gotten the stomach bug in that 4 days, except for her. I look at my husband, I go, listen, if she throws up even once, we're going in. And he's like, agreed. Because of our experience with the RSV, we knew she was going to need IV fluids, right? Mm-hmm. She's so failure to thrive. One vomit is it. So of course, during that night, she vomited. We called the pediatrician. He says, bring her here first. And it wasn't our pediatrician. It was just whoever was there. Mm-hmm. He said, bring her in first. We're just going to check her out. Now, I had been taking her weights daily because of all her feeding issues. The doctors and the speech therapist, feeding therapist wanted me taking daily weights. I hadn't been taking daily weights because I was so sick. So in that 4 days that I was sick, when she got to the pediatrician's office and they took her weight, she had lost 11 ounces.
On how big of a body at that point? Do you remember how much she weighed?
Oh God, she was barely 14 pounds.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. When she came home from the hospital with diabetes, she was 11. Yeah. So she lost 11 ounces in about 4 to 6 days, I would say. So the doctor agreed. She's majorly dehydrated. I explained to him, like, I don't think she's been getting breast milk from me because I'm so dehydrated. Like, she needs IV fluids. He goes, agreed, take her in. Now, any other child that I had previously, my 2 sons, and even Vivian, had she not had the RSV, I would have said, she's got the stomach flu. She wants to sleep. I'm going to put her in her crib and let her sleep. Mm-hmm. When we got to the hospital, they took a blood. Everyone agreed she had the stomach flu, just like we did. They took a blood glucose just for, I think it's just standard protocol. It's 597. Oh. And my husband and I, being nurses, knew immediately what that meant.
It meant you had to abandon your children and run away. You were just going to leave, right? The 2 of you got in a car and you're like, that's it. We're done. Goodbye.
We said to each other, like, if there was furniture to throw, we would have thrown it. We were just swearing and screaming. And the nurse, even when the number came up, I remember her holding the glucometer and her hand was trembling. Mm-hmm. And she just goes, and I know, like, as a nurse, she shouldn't have done this in front of us, but I'm almost glad she did, because it just shows how human nurses are.
Yeah.
But, deep down, she goes, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God," and just ran out of the room. And we're just like, swearing,
yeah. Well, that fits.
Awful.
I would have been like, okay, everything's on brand for us.
Yeah. It was just so traumatic. So she was whisked away to the ICU. The endocrinologist comes to see us immediately, talks about how rare it is to be under 2 and how extremely rare it is to be under 1. And I said to my husband, I go, if somebody uses the word rare with us again, I'm going to punch them in the face.
No kidding.
I am so sick of being rare. I'm so sick of hearing it. It was just,
yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. It wasn't, hey, Kim, do you know how rare it is to win the lottery on Thursday and Friday?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Exactly. I was like, so we always say, we're not the win the lottery type of family. We're the struck by lightning type of family.
Like, you are going to be the people who get hit with the frozen urine that falls out of the airplanes. Yeah. So
she gets whisked away to the ICU. The doctors come. They're all talking about us. She was also found to have a UTI at the time. And we talked a lot about her hospitalization when she had RSV just a few months prior, and how the RSV probably ignited the autoimmune response and ignited her, predisposition to diabetes.
Sure.
And they actually also told us that had we put her down for a nap instead of coming to the hospital, she would not have woken up.
Wow.
Because when we arrived, she was about 1 hour from death. Because she was just so frail, such a tiny little baby. So they had to take her to the ICU, put her on an insulin drip, because the blood sugars have to come down slowly as to not cause brain swelling. Mm-hmm. So she was monitored there for a couple of days. And then at the hospital we go to, there's, the pediatric endocrinology unit. They actually have you demonstrate that you're able to take care of the diabetes before you can be discharged. So a typical hospitalization could be up to like 13 days. But because we were nurses and we sort of like showed them sooner that we were capable, we got out of there in, I think, 8 or 9 days.
How do you bolus for thickened breast milk?
Oh my gosh. Scott, do you want to hear how crazy life was?
I think I already did, Kim, but if there's more, yes, please go ahead. As you heard earlier, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by the Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter. But when you get a Contour meter, what you're really getting is their test strips. Contour Next test strips feature remarkable accuracy as part of the Contour Next blood glucose monitoring system. They're the #1 branded over-the-counter test strips. And they, of course, have second chance sampling. Second chance sampling can help you to avoid wasted strips. ContourNext.com/juicebox. Near the top of the page, you'll see a Buy Now button. It's bright yellow. When you click on that, you'll get 8 options of places online to buy Contour meters and test strips. Walmart.com, Amazon, Walgreens, CVS Pharmacy, Meijer, Kroger, Target, Rite Aid. These are all links you'll find at my link. Linkity-link. Links but a link, blink, blink, link. I'm just kidding. Head over there. Now, won't you please? Listen, the Contour meters are incredibly accurate. They are simple to use. They are easy to hold, easy to read, and they have a bright light for nighttime testing. Part of me wants to say that the second chance sampling is the biggest deal, but honestly, it's the accuracy. These meters are accurate. And I know a lot of people like to think, well, I have a CGM. I don't need a meter. You do. You need a meter. You need to be accurate. You deserve it to be accurate. ContourNext.com/juicebox. Take a look at the Contour Next Gen and the other meters available from Contour. When you use my links, you're supporting the production of the show and helping to keep it free and plentiful. A diabetes diagnosis comes with a lot of new terminology, and that's why I've created the Defining Diabetes series. These are short episodes where Jenny Smith and I go over all of the terms that you're going to hear living with diabetes. And some of them that you might not hear every day. From the very simple bolus up to feet on the floor. Don't know the difference between hypo and hyper? We'll explain it to you. These are short episodes. They are not boring. They're fun. And they're informative. It's not just us reading to you out of the dictionary. We take the time to chat about all of these different words. Maybe you don't know what a Kussmaul respiration is. You will when you're done. Ever heard of glycemic index and load? Haven't? Doesn't matter. You'll know after you listen to the Defining Diabetes series. Now, how do you find it? You go to juiceboxpodcast.com, up top to the menu, and click on Defining Diabetes. You'll be able to listen right there in your browser, or you'll see the full list of the episodes and be able to go into an audio app like Apple Podcasts or Spotify and listen to them at your pace. Download them into your phone and listen when you can. The Defining Diabetes series is made up of 51 short episodes that will fast forward your knowledge of diabetes terminology.
So the other problem when she was diagnosed with diabetes is she completely stopped eating. She 100% stopped breastfeeding, eating in any way. So she actually was, an NG tube was put in. So a little tube into her nose, down her throat, and into her mouth. Into her stomach. And she came home with an NG tube. So that's another thing we had to demonstrate competence in. But I was pumping in the hospital. And because I was so dehydrated for those days before her hospitalization, and because she stopped eating, I was pretty much producing nothing at the time. And the lactation consultant came to me, and she knew how often I was pumping every hour, I think, when we were in the hospital, just to try to get my supply up. And the lactation consultant was so supportive. And she said, Kim, listen, we're going to put your breast milk through the feeding tube, but she is going to need formula. And it doesn't need to be thickened through the feeding tube because it's going directly in her stomach. And, I accepted that fact. They also found that she had blood in her stool. So they equated that to her having an intolerance to my breast milk because I was drinking milk. So I stopped milk and soy so that she wouldn't have this irritation from the breast milk. She doesn't need anything else bad going on. So she knew how much I was dedicated to continue breastfeeding her, because I had done all those things and I was pumping every hour on the clock. That she says to me, this is the day before I went home. She said, Kim, listen, you can go home and breastfeed your daughter for comfort, or you can pump every 2 hours, breastfeed her every hour, do a power pump once a day. Power pump is you pump 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off for an hour, and give her the formula through the tube, give her the breast milk through the tube. But, basically it's going to be a ton of work to get her to keep your supply up and continue breastfeeding and do it in a safe way for her swallowing. She's going to have to be side-lying. She's going to have her chin and cheek protected. I even did an S&S system where there's this tiny little tube that had formula or breast milk in a little bag, and the tube came down and was taped to my nipple, so that when she was feeding, even if she wasn't getting anything from me, she was getting a little bit of something coming through the tube so that it would stimulate my breast, thinking she was breastfeeding, but really she was getting most of it from the tube. So she's like, you could breastfeed for comfort, or you could do all that crazy jazz. Oh, and then Guinness and, I forgot the name of it. There's different herbs and things you could take to fenugreek to stimulate breast milk. You could do all those things, or you could just breastfeed for comfort. And I was like, oh no, I'll do the complicated one. So she comes home with diabetes, a feeding tube. I was breastfeeding her every hour with an S&S system. I was pumping every 2 hours. I was feeding her sitting up baby food. But with the baby food, we had to fortify it with either peanut butter, avocado, or coconut milk to add fat and calories to it. So I actually found in my little research last night, I found an old piece of paper from July of 2017. And it's just this crazy schedule. And it looks insane. I was actually insane to be doing this. But I did it. And she breastfed until she was 3.5 years old.
Oh my God.
So there, I proved everybody wrong. No, it's not about that.
You, Mom.
Yeah. Exactly. No, the moral behind that story is like, you cannot turn off the mama bear. You cannot turn off the power of a parent of a child who needs help.
Yeah.
It just, and
Kim,
that's
it's insane.
That's why I'm an advocate today. I started a not-for-profit advocacy group, and it was all from my experiences with my daughter.
Wow. That's absolutely insane.
So after 3 weeks of being home with the feeding tube, she pulled it out herself. She got strong enough that she pulled it out herself, and we put it back in. And it's like so crazy to put it back in, the screaming, the crying, the awfulness. She pulls it out again. We put it in again. She pulls it out again. And it was a Friday afternoon. And my husband and I look at each other. We're like, oops, it's Friday afternoon. No doctors are going to be able to be called. I guess we'll just have to leave it out for the weekend and see how she does. We'll call them Monday morning. Whoopsie doodle. And Monday morning we called them and they were like, this sounds like she discharged it herself, and let's just see how she does. And it never went back in after that day. Wow. And that's Viv's personality. She does not stop. She is always fighting, always doing more.
And she took that tube out, and because you had the weekend, you were able to try to feed her, and it started to work.
Yeah, we just said, like, listen, she doesn't want it in. If we had called the doctor, they would have said, put it back in. Right. But we were just like, oh, we can't call anybody. I'm not going to call an on-call doctor just for this. And we, sort of like jokingly. And we just fed her regularly over the weekend. I breastfed her. We did all the things. We gave her all the fortified foods and she did fine. And on Monday, they decided it didn't need to go back in. We followed her lead and it never went back in. And to this day, now fast forward, she's 6 years old now. She is eating completely normal foods. She has no restrictions in her diet. And with her swallowing of liquids, that was the hardest thing to conquer. She is now able, and COVID kind of helped us with this portion of her life. Because I was home with her and all the kids during COVID, I was able to like really concentrate on her swallowing and all the little things I had to do to support her swallowing. Mm-hmm. And I got her to get on iced cold thin liquids. So she now drinks liquids as long as they're iced. And you're probably wondering why they need to be iced. It's because she has a neurological delay of swallow. So her brain doesn't get the clue in time to swallow when a liquid hits the back of her throat. Oh. But if it's iced, it's like, ooh, something cold, and it elicits her swallow quicker.
How about that?
So yeah, so now she's pretty much eating and drinking, quote, normally. So we've come a long way. Yeah, that was basically her first year of life.
That's fascinating. Also, do you know what? It's fascinating that I just realized when people say COVID, we know it's a time period. It's almost like you said the Cretaceous period. And I went, oh, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's funny because it is a word that means two different things. Like if you didn't understand that part of speech, you would just be like, I don't understand. Why did getting COVID help?
I know.
But so many people say that, like, oh, it was really a blessing in disguise, COVID. And I'm like, and they mean the time for, anyway, I don't know why I got off on that. Just
no. And
really
there was a couple of more blessings from COVID for her in particular, because one of her most effective forms of speech therapy is called prompt. And the speech therapist prompts her with tactile cues on her face for different sounds. Like, for example, the N sound is putting a finger against the nostril. The T sound is touching the bottom of your chin. T, T, T. So I got to learn the prompts because it was over Zoom. Oh. I had to do the prompts on this side of the camera, and the therapist was on the other side, doing it to her own face.
Yeah. And
so
you were
we were able to do, we were able to do the prompts, and she's really, really blossomed verbally during COVID with that prompt therapy. And I could do it even to this day. And she has started to prompt herself with a lot of the sounds, which is the goal. Right. Well, the goal is to not need the prompt at all, but yeah. And then the other thing is we potty trained her. So in the first 3 days, I think, of the shutdown, she was potty trained. So that was kind of cool too.
Yes. Well,
there's some silver linings.
Yeah. Well-used time. I have questions now.
Yes.
Okay. So intellectually, is there any deficit there?
Yes. So
Okay.
she actually has scored. So, there's like receptive language and expressive language, right? So expressive language, she's obviously significantly impaired. It's very difficult for her to get her brain to know what she wants to say and actually it come out her mouth and say it with our good articulation. That's apraxia. But receptive language, she's only been found to be either average or mildly delayed. However, with standardized testing, they say that she's like significantly cognitively impaired. But you can't be significantly cognitively impaired if you have average, receptive language. It just doesn't make sense because she understands everything that's going on.
So those tests don't do a good job of testing her, basically.
They don't. Yeah. And a lot of the tests that are nonverbal, because she needs a nonverbal test, are heavy visual. But she also has visual deficits. She also has significant attention deficits. She just was diagnosed with ADHD. So the standardized testing is not going to work for this girl. Okay. But I'll tell you, she is not going to be able to, I know she's not going to be able to do the high level problem solving that diabetes requires. Mm-hmm. But she does know that she has diabetes. And in her 6-year-old brain, diabetes is every time I eat something, I have to show my mom what I'm eating so that she can give me insulin because I need this medicine to eat. Okay. And then when an alarm goes off, she knows to go get her candy corn pumpkin and then give them out to her brothers because when Vivian has a low, we all have a low. Mm-hmm. So we all get the candy. So she knows that, and she knows that she needs to get an adult if any alarms go off, if they didn't hear it in her classroom. There are concerns. There are concerns for me long term, as there are with many parents of kids with type 1 that also have special needs. I do question her ability to manage this disease long term. Mm-hmm. I don't think she will be able to manage it the way that we do. So we will be her pancreas forever. And I know that the technology is advancing so much that I do have hope that she will be okay in the future when I'm gone, because I think that there will be an artificial pancreas by then, or at least like the first step would be that wonderful pump that's coming out that has the double lumen where it's, giving insulin, but also giving glucagon. So
yeah, that's been in development for a really long time. So
yeah. But I feel like it will happen in her lifetime.
I actually, if something like that's going to happen, I made this point a couple of years ago on the podcast, but one of the reasons I got excited about Gvoke when it came out was that it's stable. Like the one of the problems they were having with that pump, the idea that the pump would do an algorithm to, give you insulin, but if you started to get too low, it would give you these kind of like mini glucagon injections.
Right.
But the problem was the glucagon wouldn't stay stable in the pump. So a liquid stable glucagon goes a long way towards, I don't know that Gvoke is involved in this or not. I'm just saying that exists now is a big step towards that. So you might be right. You might get that someday. Can I ask? Yeah,
that's my hope. That is my hope. I already have seen in her 6 years of having diabetes such advancements that have been life-changing for us.
Yeah.
It just gives me hope. And I actually like the story of her getting her first pump is another crazy one.
Can I ask a couple questions? Then I'd love to hear about
Sure.
that.
Sure.
She was wearing glasses, I imagine?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
And
she's actually getting a contact soon too.
Oh, that's exciting.
She's going to wear a contact in her. Oh, if it works, I'm not quite sure about her wanting me to stick something in her eye, but we'll see how that goes.
Find out.
The contact is going to be for one eye and then the glasses will be for the other eye.
I got you. Does she feel her lows at all? Like, can she tell you she's low?
No. Do you want to hear something crazy? Yeah. And I don't know if this is just her or if it's because of the T9P. We really have no clue. We never will. But she will be in the 30s and sort of start to look a little pale and shaky. And that's about it. Like, that's how low she has to go to show very mild signs.
Kim, going forward in the conversation, you don't have to say, do you want to hear something crazy? As a matter of fact, if you have something that's not crazy, you should say, do you want to hear something that's not crazy? Because that would surprise me. I'd go, oh, you have something that's not crazy? Sure. What's that exactly? I want to try to understand what her life is like. So she gets up in the morning. Does she go to school? Is she homeschooled?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she goes
off
to
no,
school.
No. She goes to school. So she went to, she had a ton of early intervention services. She had a ton of preschool special ed services. And she ended up going to a very specific special ed preschool and really flourished there. Of course, COVID hit during that time. So we shifted to online. And I think I was doing 19 Zooms a week with her. And for kids with special needs, Zoom doesn't really work. So it was basically equivalent to wrestling a wild baby alligator for 30 minutes for her to get maybe 4 good minutes out of it. But like I said, we are doing everything we can for this girl. And we dedicated, I haven't worked since she was born, basically until this year, because we were 100% dedicated to maximizing her potential. And she actually is in a general ed classroom. She started kindergarten last year. It's considered a general ed classroom. It's called ICT, Integrated Co-Taught. So she has a full-time general ed teacher and a full-time special ed teacher in the room. Mm-hmm. And there's about 9 kids that have IEPs and the rest are typically developing. And she stayed in that same classroom. Currently she's in first grade with the same kids and the same teachers because they looped, which was awesome. There was no transition or needing to learn personalities or anything, routines. She just took off this year, took off running. She wears Dexcom. She has a tandem pump now, which has been life-changing. And she takes dance class. Does bowling. She's in a challenger bowling league. She's in a challenger baseball league, soccer league. She does dancing. She's in a dance class called Dancers with Diverse Abilities. She really loves life. We have respite workers that come and take her out on outings. Her most important thing in her life is to go to the store, get a Starbucks, go to Target, get a Starbucks, shop for purses, and just live a life of a teenager, even though she's only 6. She loves it.
How much of her care, I guess, how much time is left over after you care for her every day? Are you seeing a distancing from your other children or your husband or your
oh, yes.
your stuff?
Yes,
I can't tell how much Coke do you do, Kim?
Exactly. I know exactly. I certainly drink a lot of caffeine. My husband and I have had a very challenging life and marriage since Vivian was born. We constantly feel guilty that we're neglecting the other children, of course. But time and time again, we've learned that, and it's been through the help of we have a very supportive village of people, oh God, such a great support. But they always point out to us, your sons are beautiful, wonderful, caring, empathetic, resilient children because of their experience with their sister. They are better people because she was born. Every person that Vivian meets is a better person after meeting her.
Yeah. No,
I also think very strongly, I was an occupational therapist. I was a nurse, or I am, I should say. You can't get that out of your blood. All of my schooling, all of my careers, previous careers, all of those jobs, all the experiences I've had as an OT and a nurse, it wasn't to become an OT or a nurse. It was to become Vivian's mother. All of that was to become her mother.
Right. Wow. How about bolusing strategies? Do you listen to the podcast?
I do.
Does anything about it help you, or does it not apply to Vivian?
No. So I'll tell you the pump story with her, and I'll tell you how the podcast helped me get more bold with insulin, for sure. For sure. Back in the day when she was 9 months old and she came home, she was just on a very low dose of Lantus, I think 1 unit per day. Mm-hmm. Then she had a honeymoon period or whatever, very short honeymoon period. And then we were bolusing her for the little bits of yogurt or baby food that she was eating with the fortified coconut oil or avocado or peanut butter in it. And we were doing like a carb counting type of thing for that. However, she was so tiny, I could not safely give her a small enough dose in a syringe without overdosing her. Mm. So our day would consist of knowingly overdosing our daughter for a blood sugar of 487, and then it dropping to 41, and us giving her cake frosting to get her out of the low, because she couldn't swallow juice. She couldn't chew candy. Like, cake frosting was pretty much it. And it actually still is what we use overnight when she's sleeping. She sleeps right through it if you put cake frosting on a spoon and put it in her mouth. Yeah. So we were overdosing her and then rescuing her with cake frosting all day long for 9 months, because our insurance company thought that it was too dangerous to use technology on a baby. Even though our argument was the safest, lowest dose you can give a baby with a syringe is 0.5 units. The smallest dose in the most basic pump available at the time, which was the Medtronic Mini-Med, was so half of a unit in the syringe is the safest for the syringe. The Mini-Med pump would give her 1/40th of a unit. Technology is the only way to safely treat a baby. It's the only way to safely treat for a baby. So our endocrinology team fought like hell for us to get a pump. I actually was looking through our documentation, our little packet here of documentation. I found a letter. Our pump was denied by the New York State Department of Financial Services, the Department of Labor, because my husband, he worked for a university hospital. So he is under the employee insurance. And I guess it went to even the United States Department of Labor to deny it, because they were calling it experimental. What did they call it? Experimental and some other crazy word. Investigational.
Kim, you would think that people would hear your story.
God.
People would hear your story and just be like, just give those people what they want. It doesn't matter. Like, leave them alone.
It came down to basically talking to the CEO of the hospital. It came down to like one person. Yeah. To be like, listen to our daily life. Listen to us. Like, we are parents. And I think this person made the decision emotionally. I think maybe they are parents themselves, or they finally got it. We were denied. Starting in August, the fight started. We were denied by the Department of Labor in September. We were denied again for the final determination by our insurance on December 13th. And then we talked to the head of the head of the head. And then finally on December 22nd of 2017, the very basic pump, Mini-Med, was approved. And then we ended up getting it, I think, at the end of January. So she was 18 months old, diagnosed at 9 months old. And we did that crazy overdosing rescue, checking her blood sugar probably 30 to 40 times a day, checking finger pricks, along with the pumping and the power pumping and the feeding tube and the coconut oil and all that.
I don't know how.
For 9 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I had to remind myself of, like, I seriously blacked this out. Like,
oh, I would imagine you're living your life in like 3-day segments.
I'm looking at these old logs. It's like 8:24 a.m. BG 458. Gave a half a unit injection. 10:22 a.m. 95. 11:16 a.m. 61. 11:40 a.m. 41. Gave a half of a tablespoon of frosting. What the fuck? Like that's insane. That's insane. But we were just living it, Yeah. So because we fought so hard for this pump, we then applied for Dexcom the next day and they just gave it to us. Like, they were just like, we're not dealing with these people again. They just gave us the Dexcom. So that changed our life significantly, because we didn't have to finger stick her 30 to 40 times a day. And then with the Mini-Med, we were able to give her 0.025 doses, which was a whole meal for her. Sometimes was that little amount.
Really?
And yeah. And the breast milk, because I was breastfeeding her and not putting it through a bottle, because you can't give thickened breast milk in a bottle. You can spoon feed it. I was just guessing. I'd be like, oh, well, I pumped an ounce or 2 ounces. So I'll give her like 2 to 3 grams for that, for that breastfeeding session we just had. So it was insane.
Yeah. The truth is that a lot of that story around the eating and the bolusing, I mean, aside from Vivian's obvious differences from Arden, like a lot of that's what we did too. Like, I don't know if have I ever told this on here? Like one time I took some insulin, I drew up in a syringe and I squirted it back into a dish. And then I colored it with food coloring so that I could see it. And this never went into Arden. It was like as a test. And I would teach myself how to pull on the plunger just enough to get like 2 drops. Like sometimes it wouldn't even go into the syringe. You just fill the needle with it, which is insane. And then you
try. Okay.
Yeah.
When you end this podcast, go get a syringe. Try doing even a quarter of a unit in a syringe. Try it. Like, how could you possibly know what you're putting into your child?
Yeah. I would do
like a half a unit is the only line that you can actually see.
Right.
And a half a unit would freaking kill her.
Yeah.
Like that's how
way too much.
That's how little. Yeah.
Yeah. That was my experience too. And then you would like, I remember putting in the syringe, then I'd press really hard on not on her, but on the plunger, and I would hold it because I was like, there's such a little amount in there. Like I got to make sure it gets out. Like, so you kind of wait.
What if you accidentally bump it? Yeah.
And you're just like, and then it was over and you thought, well, did that go in? And if
no clue.
And if it didn't, how do I with any confidence give her more? And I can't do that, like, cause that, like you said, Arden was, gosh, she was like 18 pounds when she was diagnosed, and that was still really difficult. And if I gave her food, she'd eat it. And still, I don't know what you guys, so you're crazy, right? You're just functioning. You guys
we're like survival mode all the time.
Did the COVID kid come out and you're just like, I don't even pay attention to this kid. It's fine. We just leave it there and it grows and it's fine. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have any energy left at the end of a day?
Well, listen, I just had a baby at 41. So I had to actively change my lifestyle to feel more energetic for him.
How'd you do that?
Am I allowed to say a name of a product that I use or no?
I don't care.
My husband bought me a Peloton bike.
Okay.
Last Christmas, I started to make some diet changes. And I actually found out that I have like borderline I have high cholesterol. I say borderline because I don't like to admit. So
that's the thing you don't want to say out loud, Kim.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So basically I did some diet changes. I started working out on the Peloton 4 times a week and drinking tons of water. I drank 60 ounces plus of water a day. Mm-hmm. And I think my triglycerides went from 238 to 99. And I lost, I want to say I'm up to like 18 pounds at this point.
Riding a bike
and
drinking.
I'm not a huge person to begin with, but I did put on weight with this like experience of life. So I just thought, I made a change. I'm like, listen, we are going to have to live a really long time, not only because we have a child with special needs. We are obviously we want her to outlive us, but it is scary to think about her outliving us because I don't know who's going to take care of her.
Yeah. So
we do have to live longer than people with typical developing children. And then I had a baby at 41. Mm. So I got to live a long time for him too. So I made some changes and started yoga, acupuncture, aromatherapy. We do a lot of things, Yeah. I'm going to be calling a therapist soon. I'm not shy about that. Like, I think people should talk about mental health issues and stress issues. I started a not-for-profit with 2 other moms advocating for kids in our county to get the services that they deserve.
What's that called?
So we started Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County. Mm. And we advocate for children and families of Monroe County to receive early intervention services and preschool special ed services like Vivian received. However, now there is such a funding shortage. They have a tremendous provider shortage. And there's currently a wait list of like 280 children who are supposed to be legally getting these services, and they just don't have the providers to give them the services. So I will dedicate the rest of my life for fighting for these kids, because Vivian's early intervention is the reason she's thriving today.
Yeah.
I will always, that fire will never go out. Every child deserves early intervention and preschool special ed services. Every single child that has a need that needs to be fulfilled should have it fulfilled.
Right. Well, I like that you did something very locally. I think that's maybe very impactful in a way that you lose if you try to do something on a national level or statewide level or something like that. I think that's great.
We definitely are statewide too. We do a lot of state level advocacy. We actually were pretty strong in getting a bill called the Covered Lives Assessment passed, and it brought money into the early intervention system. And then, of course, they did a bait and switch, and they're using it as cost savings for the state instead of actually investing it in rate increases for providers. So we have a long way to go and a huge fight still. But what we're doing locally to help families is we're providing scholarships to kids who are not receiving services to go to like therapy groups at clinics around town to get some strategies going so they can bring that home and use that at home because they're sitting on wait lists. And then we offer purposeful programming every month, either a huge play date with providers there or an online seminar for parents. Like the one we did last month was talking about gross motor development in your infant through preschooler age.
How do you, that's astonishing. It's astonishing that you have time. Like if you told me I raked the leaves this weekend, I'd be like, wow, way to go, Kim. So all that is pretty amazing. How do you manage your Hashimoto's? What does it take to keep that balance?
Oh, I'm on levothyroxine, and I've been on it since I was 15. So, and there was like, it's funny, like I had an uncle who had type 1 diabetes, and my mom and I have Hashimoto's, and he had a grandson that had type 1 diabetes. I still never in a million years thought type 1 was going to touch one of my children.
Yeah.
Like what? Like it just never crossed my mind. And then when COVID hit, because I've actually known 2 people already in my county who got COVID and got type 1 about 3 months later, just like Viv with her RSV and a few months later. So I'm talking to my husband. I'm like, I could get type 1, like anytime, any day. Like
honestly,
any of my
I
children
expected
can.
you to get it while we were talking because
exactly.
I figured
exactly.
Yeah,
and I'm already at higher risk of type 2 because I had huge babies, except for Viv. Yeah, like so we were very, very careful, more careful than most during COVID because of that fear. And I wanted to get our baby vaccinated before getting it. Like I just wanted, and it's funny when our baby turned 9 months old, that PTSD, like I was just like, this is how young Vivian was when she got type 1. Like I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. And I remember that month milestone like very significantly, and like all this trauma came back to us. Mm-hmm. And luckily, like my husband and I are best friends. We were together for 10 years, even before we got married. And we've been together, I think 23 years at this point. He's super funny. Our kids, we just manage our life as a team. And not a day goes by without my older son saying, Mama, is there anything I could do to help? And I love how Vivian has brought us together, has brought us into this like team approach to life.
Yeah.
And humor. Like my husband is hilarious, and we just make a joke about everything to get us through. And we decided we can't both be stressed out at the same time. So if I'm losing it, he's got to keep his shit together, and vice versa. We can't lose it at the same time.
Seems like a fair and equitable agreement.
Yeah.
And necessary.
Yeah. Let's shake on this.
Yeah. No kidding. I have a couple of questions for you. What are your life goals for Vivian? Like, what are you shooting for? Like, like I send my kid to school because I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to college so we can get a job, like that kind of stuff. But what are you thinking about?
I would love for her to go to college. I would love for her to be supported in the community as a contributing member of the community with a job of some sort. I would love for her to live on her own, if that is in the cards, with some support. We're thinking she probably would need, some level of continuous supervision in some way. But really the story is up to her. So I'm not going to limit her in any way in our goals or our aspirations, because she's going to show us exactly what she's capable of doing.
Right.
I know that her brothers are going to support her. I don't think I have to do anything to make that happen. I think it's just the way it is. It's just the way it's going to be. So that does bring me comfort, but I also want them to have their own lives too, so.
So your expectation is that just life will uncover a path as you're moving forward.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I think it has.
Yeah.
It has so far. I started a Facebook group called Type 1 and Special because there are so many parents out there that have kids that have special needs and have type 1, and it does bring on unique challenges. And I have felt that level of support is different than what's given in other Facebook groups. So if anybody wants to join me in that efforts, please jump on, because I think that there are certain things that are going to come up that might not come up for, let's say, Arden,
Yeah.
Like who is going to do my pump changes? Who's going to change my Dexcom? Who's going to make the dosing changes? Who's going to take me to the doctor? And obviously things are getting so much more technological and automated. It brings me hope that she would need less support than what we're giving her right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do think there's unique challenges. Even the swallowing issues are unique challenges. I don't think I'll ever be able to give her apple juice. She's not going to ever be able to drink 8 ounces of apple juice and chug it down.
Yeah.
So, we do have different ways of treating her lows. Overnight lows are frosting. Like different ideas like that could offer some other families some ideas and help, get them through. Yeah. And even just her insulin requirements being so low, it's crazy. Like we waited 4 years. So our insurance company only gives insulin pumps every 4 years. So we waited 4 years basically to get Tandem, and I couldn't wait for it. It was just it's such an exciting day. And now they have technology. So Tandem in itself was so exciting because we finally started to sleep at night. Mm-hmm. Because it has the auto shut off.
Sure.
It's unbelievable how much more sleep we get now than before Tandem.
Yeah.
So that now they have this awesome app where you can dose off of her telephone. So for a girl who's like already got so many things going on and needs to like really work hard in her classroom and concentrate, to have a nurse walk in and be like, and managing her, getting her, she wears a spy belt that has her phone and her pump in it, mm-hmm. like interrupting the class or even worse, going down to the nurse's office. I am all about diabetes is not running her life. You need to go to her. If you're going to give her a dose, you go to her. I'm not interrupting her education because of her diabetes. She needs to be in the classroom. And then they're like, oh, what about finger sticks? I'm like, finger sticks in the classroom. If it really bothers another kid, they can come talk to me and I'll talk to their parents about it. Diabetes is part of her and she shouldn't be treated differently because of it. And it's actually against the law to be like specifically discriminating against her or changing her educational plan because of her diabetes. Right. So her school is tremendously supportive. Our district is tremendously supported. So we did a lot of things different this year versus last year, where the nurse goes in and now she doesn't even have to be near Vivian. We put her phone at the front of the classroom and she doses her from the doorway. Vivian doesn't even know that she was there.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's awesome.
That's amazing.
So for a girl who doesn't really like to be stopped, interrupted, touched, and has like extreme ADHD, that is life changing. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Driving in a car, I can dose her on a road trip without having to climb back there, unbuckle this, car seat and get to her pump so she can eat. She loves to eat. That's like her favorite pastime.
Yeah. She
can eat and drink whatever she wants and we can dose her from afar. It's been beautiful. It's been life-changing.
Earlier you were talking about you started a Facebook group, and it made me think, I wish Facebook gave me a little bit of autonomy to split my group up a little bit, because I would, in a second, start that kind of a subgroup inside of the group and let someone like you moderate it. You
well, Scott, I started it today.
Oh, I just looked. I realized.
I started it like literally like an hour before our call because I was like, wait a minute, this is a great opportunity. So I like this advocacy bug that's in me. It's never going to stop. I can't shut it off.
Yeah.
So I'm like prepping for my chat with you. And I'm just like, wait a minute, somebody is going to say, I relate to this. I relate to the story. I relate to those fears of who is going to take care of my child. And let's get together and talk about it. Yeah. And please invite yourself in, Scott. Join our group.
No, I wanted to, do you know what I mean? Like there's already my group has like, I don't know, there's like over 30,000 people in it. So there's an opportunity for you to like say, hey, look, there's a subgroup here that does this, except the Facebook just doesn't allow that. So I wish it did.
Yeah, I know.
Wish it had, like,
it
rooms,
might someday.
You know?
It might someday.
It would be nice.
But
honestly.
there's a lot of different things I talked about that can touch on people, like breastfeeding, swallowing issues, intellectual disabilities, even like fine motor problems. Like if a kid can't use their hands or an adult can't use their hands, how do they manage diabetes? Who's going to help them?
I don't know.
Problems like higher level problem solving. I think I saw on a meme, diabetics make like 80 or 180 more decisions per day than a regular person. Yeah, I get it. I understand that. And my daughter's not going to be able to make 80 decisions a day.
Right.
So, these fears are real and they're unique and they touch upon a certain parent. And I want to help those parents.
Find those people. Yeah. Well, I hope that works out for you. That's amazing. Kim, we're up on our hour. Is there anything that, may I be honest, Kim, you have that Italian talk in you. I don't think I actually.
Oh my God, I know. And I told the person who was going to come over and watch my baby, I was like, listen, he said an hour, but I'm going to get cut off. I know. Cause I just talk and talk and talk. But her story, like there's just so much in the story. How can I not?
No. It was absolutely fine. Don't get me wrong. I just think that when I make a transcript for this one day, it's going to say Kim 87%, Scott 13%. And that's fine. but my reason for bringing it up was I was going to joke and say, like, is there anything I didn't ask you? But I don't think I asked you anything, so it doesn't.
Oh, I know. I'm so sorry. The only other thing I was going to touch upon is just like how low her basal doses are still. Like even as a 6-year-old, we still are making those 0.025 changes. And her carb ratio is 22, 24. And still, like she's just getting these tiny doses. So that doesn't
seem odd to me.
It doesn't seem odd to you.
No.
It seems crazy to me because the other 6-year-old I know in our town is like it's just totally different dosing changes. Well, but we didn't get the Omnipod. We didn't get the Omnipod because we still need those 0.025s changes.
How much does she weigh?
She weighs 47 pounds now.
Is the other 6-year-old heavier than that?
Not really. No, not really.
Is the other 6-year-old less active than Vivian?
Maybe. And then this whole like ADHD med thing is driving me nuts now because she's not eating as much and she's not finishing her meals. And that's never been a problem for her before. And it's driving me nuts. So that's just going to add a whole new little
the word
challenge for us.
The word adjustment should probably be like tattooed on your forearm because you're going to be making a lot of adjustments constantly.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Okay, so when we hear a story of a lady in a bell tower, it's going to be you, right? Like, you're like, I'm done.
really okay.
Yeah, no,
we are so supported by our village, our friends, our family, her school, her endocrinology team. Like, we couldn't be living this life without all of them.
Yeah,
and my husband and my kids, like, they're just so great. And having a baby has been so great for her as well because she is now teaching him. Having 2 older brothers that she was chasing after. Mm-hmm. She was achieving milestones to catch up to them. And now she has a younger brother that she's teaching. It's just been beautiful to watch. I love being their mom.
I'm amazed at your story and I appreciate you sharing it with me. That's not, I mean, the truth is I never know what anybody's going to say, but there's some expectation when people start talking. You're like, oh, this might go this way, or I can feel the story moving in this direction. But your stuff is just so different, and your response to it is just laudable. It's amazing.
Is it different, Scott, or is it absolutely insane?
It's absolutely insane. Yes, it really is. I mean, while you've been speaking more than a number of times, I've looked at the general just description of what I can't even say it. Chromosome 9 test.
Tetrasomy 9P.
Tetrasomy 9P. And you start reading it, you're like, this must have felt like a joke when somebody told you the first time.
Like that's why we're like, there's no stopping her. We are going to support her and with everything we can, because that girl is she's already something. She is spicy as all get out. Yeah. She understands everything that's going on. And even though she's limited verbal and uses her device and sign language a little bit, but even with just her body language, there is not a single person that meets her that doesn't understand every single thing she's trying to communicate to you.
Excellent. That's excellent.
She just gets it through. Yeah. She gets it through.
I'm trying to imagine myself being sent to this webpage for my child. And the word rare is modified with the word very in the first sentence. Like, there's no need to modify rare with very. Rare is very rare.
Right.
Very.
Exactly.
I'm 3 words in and they're like, it's a very rare chromosomal disorder. And you're like, wait, very rare? Like, what the hell does that mean? Yeah. You know?
And back to Facebook. We did find a Facebook group of families of kids and adults with Tetrasomy 9P and have had a tremendous support from them. And we use Google Translate because there's people from all over the world that don't speak English. But even within our group, there's such a variety of abilities and such hope and such support. So I'm so glad for things like Facebook, because I would have never otherwise known any other soul, that has Tetrasomy 9P.
Yep.
There's actually another child in our state, and there's another child in Toronto. And we're actually really good friends with the family in Toronto and have provided each other support for years now because of this Facebook group that we found. So
people can make fun of Facebook all they want, but what it has is a large number of members, and therefore the opportunity to find people. And that doesn't exist in another place.
Almost all of our work with my not-for-profit is through Facebook. That's how we reach the most amount of people to influence the most amount of political figures to get change.
You're just not, there's no other social media platform or a way that you could reasonably financially reach these people. And it's, it's just underused. I mean, I think I use it pretty well, but I mean, a lot of people underuse it for other stuff where it could be helpful.
Yeah.
So,
and we're actually getting together with a bunch of Tetrasomy 9P families. We got together this past year in Detroit, because there's randomly a lot of like congregated people in Michigan. And then before COVID, we had done our first one in Detroit. And this year I invited people to our house. So they're coming to me. So whoever, around the world, whoever wants to come and meet, we always have a wonderful time and just share stories and feel validated and supported, which is what it's all about.
But what's the website for your organization?
The Facebook group is Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County Public Forum.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. I know it's right around the holidays and everything, and taking the time to jump on means a lot to me. So
I actually had to cancel her endocrinology appointment for this, Scott.
I think you made the right decision.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
And her nurse practitioner was like, "Oh, that's great." Woo-hoo. And I told the school nurses, I'm like, "Do not text me or call me between 10:30 and 11:30. I am doing the Juicebox podcast." Well, can I tell you how your podcast helped me?
Oh,
being more bold.
Yeah, sure.
Being more bold with insulin, Kim, for sure.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Could I stop you if I wanted to?
I don't think so. Sorry, Scott. Listen.
That's okay.
One more thing. Being more bold with insulin, for sure. Listen to the pro tip series. My husband is not there yet. He's still a little apprehensive, but I am definitely more bold with insulin, and we have had an improved A1C because of it. And just fighting for the equipment. Like, I just, if there's equipment and technology out there, I'm going to get it. We actually still had the G5 until it almost was like not even being made anymore because I was afraid to make any changes. And then I listened to your podcast. And I'm like, honey, we need the G6. Like, we need to just get the G6. And so we made that change. And I really fought for the tandem pump because it's just what we need. The day that she was qualified for it, we got it. Like, that is, so thank you for that.
You're very welcome. It's actually, as soon as I get off with you, I have to call the place where my mom is living because they're not setting up some of her services correctly. And I wish I could record that for you because you would all hear what I think is going to be a master's class in making someone do something that they're supposed to do. My sister-in-law sent me a text last night, and this thing's not getting put into place nearly quick enough. And they said, well, there's an acclimation period for both the resident and us. And I said to my sister-in-law, I'm like, that's a bullshit statement that doesn't mean anything. I was like, it's been 2 weeks. What I said, did you ask what is that? Why? What's that acclimation period for? Because the answer would have been like, I don't know. No one's ever asked a follow-up question when I shoveled that shit at them. And
exactly.
Yeah, so
this is my, like, not that you need advice as an advocate, but my advice as an advocate is, let me speak to the manager. Let me speak who's above them. Let me speak who's above them. Never stop until you get the answer you want. Never stop.
Yeah, you need somebody who's motivated to do their job most of the time.
Yeah, and most of the time, it's like, it's bureaucracy. I can't say the word. It's hard when you're arguing with people to not get like emotional and not get rude, like mean. I try not to do that because the people are on your team. They want the best for what you're trying to do. They're just limited in their resources, right?
You're so nice, Kim. I think people are generally lazy and don't want to do their job.
and that could be true.
Yeah.
But being rude or being aggressive is not going to get you anywhere. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's part of being an advocate is like reading the room.
Oh yeah.
And yeah.
You have to
and making them part of your team. Like empowering them to
for sure.
feel like they're part of your team, you know?
Yeah. The desire to get the right outcome is at the top. You're not trying to be right. You're not trying to be, you're not trying to win. You're just trying to get this thing to happen, whatever it is. You don't need anyone to know that you beat them. As a matter of fact, I oftentimes let people feel like they're besting me because it makes people feel better. It empowers them. And then suddenly you make them feel like, I was going to say something I can't say. You make them feel like they're in control. And
then it was their idea.
And it was their idea. And you're just like a bleep, like a little, just a puddle in the corners, happy to be getting their attention. And you let them feel like they're the master of the universe. Like, who the hell cares? Because once I hang up the phone, I'm not going to know you ever again. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't care how you feel or what you're, if it's right or wrong. It doesn't matter as long as the thing happens.
That's it.
Yeah. I was going to use a euphemism earlier that it's inappropriate, but I couldn't find other words for it. It stopped me in my tracks. I was like, oh, I can't say that. But that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to call this person. I am going to politely and kindly direct them to do their job and make them think it's their idea.
And your outcome is going to be great.
That's all I
have every faith. Every faith.
All right.
Vivian wanted me to tell you, because I told her I was going to tell her story today. She wants you to know that over Christmas break, her cousins from Hong Kong are coming and they're going to have a sleepover with her at Nana's house. That's what she wanted to tell you.
I'm glad she messaged me with that. Why do you have cousins in Hong Kong?
My sister lives in Hong Kong.
What, is she special? She had to run off.
Yeah,
to Hong Kong?
She had to run off to Hong Kong. She actually met her husband here, and it was kind of always in the cards that they would move there, and they did. And we didn't see them for almost 3 years during COVID, but we saw them this past July for a month, and now they're coming again for Christmas because they lifted all the restrictions.
Well, tell Vivian I hope she has a great time on her sleepover, and
thank you.
Have a lot of fun with her cousins, right?
Yes, that's what it's all about.
That's amazing. Oh.
Living the life.
She's doing more than I'm doing.
That girl.
That's what I'm telling you right now. She's got a more packed social calendar than I do.
Yeah, dude, this girl is truly living her best life. Don't you worry about her.
I'm happy for her. I just
watch out, world.
I just sit here and make this podcast. So, when I said earlier, like, I don't think people, like, sometimes people just don't work hard, and have somebody come to me and say, like, how did you build the podcast this big? Or how does it reach that many people? Or I'm like, I work at it. Like it's, I don't get up in the morning and go, I don't feel like it today. Like I made this podcast recently, Kim, with a fever that I thought was going to knock me off of my chair. And there's no way you could find that episode and know that I was sick while I was making it, because this is my job.
Because you know that people need to hear these stories.
Yeah,
you live it. You live it.
It's a thing I've chosen to do. So if you're going
you're an
to
advocate.
do it,
you're an advocate, Scott.
If you're going to choose to do something, then do it. And now I'm directly talking to the woman who I'm about to talk to on the phone with my mom, I think. But it shouldn't be hard to do the basics of what you're supposed to be doing.
I know. That's true to everything related to special
100%.
needs. Like, why do I have to fight this hard for something so basic? But that's the issue.
Yeah.
The most vulnerable are always thought about very last. Always.
I think
about not to get, I'm not going to get political, but it's both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
The most vulnerable, poor, people with disabilities, veterans, and the elderly. They are always thought of last. Mm-hmm. And that's what needs to change in the world. The most vulnerable should be supported first. That's the only way our community can be successful.
Yeah, that's hard to disagree with. That's for sure. You made me think about when I met my wife. She worked in a movie theater, and I remember being there and watching her come in at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and work till 2 o'clock in the morning. I imagine they weren't making $4 an hour probably, and she worked at that job consistently throughout the evening, hard. Like hustling around and helping people and being polite and fixing problems. And when the kids couldn't, or when the other people couldn't keep up with the lines, like she would jump in. And I just recently, we went to see a movie, and the person who brought me the popcorn was texting while they brought it to me. Like they had their phone in their hand and they were texting while they were holding my popcorn, never made eye contact with me, and then charged me the money and left. And I don't know what happened in 20 years, but I don't know, just it's your job.
A lot has happened.
Just try a little
bit. A lot has happened.
Anyway.
One little documentary that people might be interested in, the special needs community, like worrying about what's going to happen to their child when they become adults and when they outlive us. PBS did a wonderful documentary called The Good Life. You can find it and watch it. And it really kind of hones in on the fears that parents of adults with disabilities have, because guess what? Everyone's living longer now and they are outliving their parents, and they do need supports for the rest of their lives. And what do those supports look like? Yeah. There's never enough funding. There's never enough staffing, and the safety is never enough. It's never good enough.
Sure. So that pressure's on
the good life on PBS. The pressure's on for us to be advocating for the rest of our lives. And why do we have to fight so hard? Yeah, it sucks. But I'm never going to stop.
No, of course. But it's also on you now to stack up money and insurance policies and all this other stuff, because
yeah,
I don't know how you don't think about that.
We already have a special needs trust fund set up, and I have a very good friend who just opened up a local business that has inclusive hiring, and she's really paving the way around here, at least, to focus on the people with disabilities are a part of our community. It's not weird or unique or odd to see a person with, let's say, Down syndrome working at a coffee shop.
Right.
Like, she's paving the way. Like, we do inclusive hiring. It's not like, oh yes, we hire people with disabilities. That's not what it's about. We do inclusive hiring, and we do a partner system where a person that needs a little bit more support has a partner right next to them working in the community. Mm-hmm. And she's paving the way to make that normal.
Yeah.
That needs to be normalized. Vets, elderly people, like these type of community programs need to be normalized and supported.
I appreciate you bringing that up and making everybody aware of it. I'm going to let you go now, but
yeah, you're going to cut me off.
No, I mean, listen,
Please
I have
do.
a life. I got to go yell at this lady, right?
My friends, you got to go yell at the lady, and I got to go. I don't even know what I'm going to do.
Well,
I don't know what I'm going to do.
We'll see
Peloton?
what happens.
I'll jump on the Peloton.
I was going to say, you should forget Peloton. You ought to be on a real bike. You could probably cover some real ground. I wrote down 60 ounces of water, by the way.
I can't get hit by a car. I can't die, Scott. There's too many people to take care of here.
I wrote down 60 ounces of water. I'm going to meaningfully try to drink 60 ounces of water in a day and see what that's like. So,
and do oatmeal with blueberries and ground flaxseed in the morning.
That's it?
Just that one change. It fills you up. Blueberries are magical. The flaxseed it gives you a very good source of fiber to reduce your cholesterol. And the water with that. And also, I also bought a large container of mixed nuts, unsalted, and I keep it in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I snack on healthy nuts that are good for my heart instead of crap. And I keep that in the car.
I'm just going to end Kim on you saying I snack on healthy nuts. Perfect. Thank you very much. No wonder your husband's got such a good sense of humor. All right, we're done.
God, goodbye, Scott. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it, honestly.
Welcome.
I think the more people share their stories, the better our community is.
I agree. Hold on one second for me.
Okay.
Well, let's thank Kim for coming on the show and telling us Vivian's story. That was really something else. And we'll also thank the Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter for sponsoring this episode. ContourNext.com/Juicebox. Get yourself a good, accurate meter. Get yourself the Contour. If you're enjoying the Juicebox podcast, please share it with someone else who you think might also enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe or follow in a podcast app like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. There are so many great apps. They're completely free, just like this show. Just subscribe and follow. It really helps. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Once there was a time when I just told people, if you want a low and stable A1C, just listen to the Juicebox Podcast. But as the years went on and the podcast episodes grew, it became more and more difficult for people to listen to every one. So I made the Diabetes Pro Tip series. This series is with me and Jenny Smith. Jenny is a certified diabetes care and education specialist. She's also a registered and licensed dietitian and a type 1 herself for over 30 years. And I, of course, am the father of a child who was diagnosed at age 2 in 2006. The Pro Tip series begins at episode 210 with an episode called Newly Diagnosed or Starting Over. And from there, all about MDI, pre-bolusing, insulin pumping, bumping and nudging, variables, exercise, illness, injuries, surgeries, glucagon, long-term health, bumping and nudging, how to explain type 1 to your family, postpartum, honeymoon, transitioning, all about insulin, temp basals. These are all different episodes. Setting your basal insulin, fat and protein, pregnancy, the glycemic index and load, and so much more, like female hormones and weight loss. Head now to juiceboxpodcast.com. Go up in the menu at the top and click on Diabetes Pro Tip. Or if you're in the private Facebook group, there's a list of these episodes right in the featured tab. Find out how I help keep my daughter's A1C between 5.2 and 6.2 for the last 10 years without diet restrictions. Juiceboxpodcast.com. Start listening today. It's absolutely free.